Welcome to today's class on Dotloop 201. Now this will be the more advanced class. My name is Leah and I'll be taking you through today's tips, tricks, and time savers to help make your Dotloop experience a little more efficient, a little more effective. The Dotloop 101 video is also recorded on slmtraining.com, and that video is more created for agents who have not really been in Dotloop at all, or maybe you're a very beginner at Dotloop. The Dotloop 101 video is, of course, a great place to start. Today's class will be a little more fast-paced, and I'll be building on the Dotloop 101 class, giving you additional tips and how you can utilize Dotloop as a tool to help your transactions go very smooth and efficient for you and your clients. So, of course, we're going to want to start today's class in Dotloop. So if you could go ahead, you can either log in directly to dotloop.com, or of course, as you probably know, assuming that you've been in Dotloop a few times here now, you can go to mykw.kw.com and click Start My Transactions right from your top center eEdge control panel. So either way you like getting into Dotloop, that's totally fine. While we're on that topic, just a heads up, there is a Dotloop mobile app as well that is great to download for your Android or iPhone devices. So either your phone or your tablet. It's really great when you're on the go and you can pull up those forms, in the car with your client on your iPad, for example, so that they can quickly sign that there. Tongue twister. So go ahead, I would recommend downloading that for sure. Now, as you're getting into Dotloop, just a quick overview of what Dotloop is, as I'm sure you're well aware. It's going to be where all of your transactions sit. So it's kind of like your online filing cabinet. You're going to have a loop per property that you sell in here. And you'll hear me say the word loop quite a bit in today's class, and what I mean by loop is it is an online file. Now, when I say that you're going to have a loop per property that you sell, so what I mean is you'll have a loop if you're representing a client who is selling their home with you and also buying the next home. That is going to be two different loops because it's two different properties or two different transactions. So Dotloop works per property, so just a heads up on that. And as you're all getting into your Dotloop account here, the first thing I want to talk about is your Dotloop homepage organization. Now, I want to show you, since this is the more advanced class, I do want to show you that they are working on rolling out a new Dotloop homepage view. So you'll notice on the very top of your screen here, you'll see it says, click here for early access, the new and improved loops page. So it's kind of like a darker black bar here. And just for fun, let's go ahead and look at it. I'll be teaching class from the normal Dotloop view that you're used to, but I do want to introduce you to it so you can start playing around with it to see how you like it. So let's go ahead and click here for early access, okay? And we can easily switch back over, so no worries on that. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and that'll take you over to the new Dotloop homepage here. And I'll just click continue. Now they are just in the beta testing phase, right? So you'll notice right here they're looking for feedback. So they are encouraging agents to go ahead and start playing around with it, see what you think, and email them with any suggestions. Now the good news is, because I know no one likes change. I don't like it when I learn a system and then all of a sudden it changes. No one likes that, right? So the good news though, it is only the Dotloop homepage that is actually changing. And with that being said, all the navigation is pretty much identical to the normal Dotloop homepage that you're used to. The biggest difference that I've been able to see is really the color, and the loops are now squares, which is kind of ironic. So you'll notice each of your transactions are now in a square. But try it. If you click on any option from the screen, whether it's the navigation on the top right here, that is always the same, right? That's the exact same. Or any of your loops, and you can stay where you are if you'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and click on one of my loops just so you can see that it reverts back to what you're used to seeing. And that makes me sigh with relief, just seeing that it's what I'm used to seeing here as soon as I click on my loop. Okay, so if you did click on the loop with me, feel free to click back to my loops on the top left here to get back to that Dotloop homepage. Now, I do highly suggest playing around with this new Dotloop homepage here. I did make a 10-minute tip video on this Dotloop homepage. If you would like to email us at support@scottleroymarketing.com after class, you can put attention my name, which is Leah, Leah, and ask for that little tip video on the new Dotloop homepage. I'd be happy to shoot that over to you so you can learn more on that. For now, let's go ahead and click where it says on the top right, where it says want out, go back. Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is one of those moments that if you don't click with me, I'll lose you for a bit here. So make sure that you click go back on the top right. Okay, that'll be under maybe your initials or your headshot on the top right. We'll click go back, and that'll take you to the Dotloop homepage that you're used to. Now, with that being said, so where I want to start in class is organization of your Dotloop homepage. Okay, that'll definitely make your life so much easier if your loops are organized and the ones that you need to see are at the top of your account here. So first of all, there are two different views of this normal Dotloop homepage that we're used to. All right, this is called the grid view that we're looking at here. And if you could go ahead and click on, if you are looking at the same view here, you'll notice that you can click on a red dot on the top right of your screen. It's kind of right under the black toolbar here on a white toolbar. It'll be a red dot on the far right. If you do not have that red dot, that's probably because you haven't created any loops yet. No worries, it's not wrong. All right, but if you do have that dot, go ahead and click on it. So again, that was on the top right here to switch over your Dotloop homepage view. Now, in the meantime, this is the list view, and this is the view that I would highly suggest using for your Dotloop homepage. The main reason for that is that it gives you a search bar at the top of your screen. Now, as you start to sell tons of homes and have tons of transactions, you're going to have tons of loops. And you want to be able to search through your loops to quickly find the one you're looking for. With that being said, once a loop sells, or let's say it falls through, or you created a test loop, okay, so there's kind of some quote-unquote trash loops in your account that you don't need to be seeing. Let me show you how you can go about archiving those and getting rid of your sold loops so you don't have to be seeing those on a daily basis to clean things up a bit. All right, so just a heads up, there's no deleting anything in Dotloop, and we'll go over that more in just a little bit here. All right, so your loops are always in here, but we can archive them or mark them as sold to get them not to show. So if you have a loop on here that you want to practice this with, feel free, or you can just look on my screen. So another reason I like this Dotloop homepage view is because under each one of the property addresses here, it gives me the option to toggle the status. All right, and the statuses are huge for organization. So you'll notice right here under this loop, it says select transaction type. So that's the first step. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to listing for sale, for example. Once I change that first drop-down arrow here, it will then give me the option to select the loop status, which is where the real benefit starts. So where it says select a loop status, and again, you only get the second drop-down once you've changed the first one. So on the second drop down here, I'm going to go ahead and change that. All right, you'll notice if it is an active listing, you would change that here under contract and so forth. But for organizational purposes, we do have the options to change it to sold and archived. So obviously we don't need to be looking at our sold loops every day. And if we have practice loops or a transaction falls through, we can also archive that loop. So I'm going to select archive just to show you what this looks like. Now, the archive loop, it doesn't just randomly disappear when you change the status. So there is one more step here to getting your archived and sold loops not to display on your Dotloop homepage here. Now, if you could scroll up to the top of your screen again, if you're following along, and we'll click on filter on the very top right of your screen, kind of on this white toolbar. So we are selecting filter on this white toolbar here. And in that center column, that's where you are choosing which loop statuses to display. Now you can click up to 9, all right? So I'm going to make sure to check the ones I want and particularly leave the one unchecked, sold, and I'm going to uncheck archived. Okay, so I can check 9 others here. And in this example, if you could just leave unchecked the archived and uncheck the sold, that will make it so that loops, as you guessed, marked as sold or archived won't display on your home screen. So now what I can do is come to this red filter button on the right side of your screen here. So I'm selecting filter on the right side, that red button. And you will then notice that those archived loops have disappeared from my home page. Now, a big question that we get, moving on from that, so that is a great way to organize your Dotloop homepage. I would highly recommend keeping track of that. A big question that we get from that, though, is, oh my gosh, I went into my loop, it's gone. My loop is gone, what do I do? And you can imagine how panic-stricken you would be if your entire loop with all your executed contracts all of a sudden disappeared. So if that ever happens to you, all right, take a deep breath, and what you'll want to do is come up to filter again. All right, and really what always happens with that is the filters are hiding it. So if you just come up to filter one more time, click clear all on the far right in red. Okay, it'll clear all filters that are clicked here. And I can go ahead and click that red filter button again, and it will make all my loops appear once again. Now rest assured, again, you can't delete anything from Dotloop. You can't delete loops, you can't delete forms, you can only archive them. So rest assured they are in your account, and you just typically need to clear out those filters. Alright, so that is a great tip if you ever run into that. And just a heads up for the class, guys, if I lose anyone or you want to see something again or you're not quite understanding what I'm saying, please feel free to shoot me a chat. I'm happy to clarify or catch you up so you can get the full benefit of class. Now, one more quick tip on this Dotloop homepage view. You will notice on the top right it says sort by. And obviously you have a whole bunch of different options of how you want your loops to be sorted. I really recommend the last updated being at the top. Okay, so that way the ones that you are working on actively are at the very top of your Dotloop account. Okay, so that's a great thing to use as well. So now let's get into the exciting part of Dotloop, creating a practice loop. So if you are looking at this same Dotloop homepage view, let's go ahead and click Create a Loop on the far right of this red search bar. Okay, so we're clicking on Create a Loop on the far right of this red search bar. And let's go ahead and set up a practice loop. It's really great to have a practice loop in your account so you can do just that. Practice different things before you go on an appointment with your client so you look like you know what you're doing. Always helpful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set up a practice loop. If you want to name it 123 practice loop or 123 Main Street or your home address, feel free. But as you're typing that in here, okay, so something I do want to point out, and this is a little more of an advanced concept, so bear with me on this. Now, as you're typing in the property address, you might notice that different suggestions pull up of which property you're typing in. And you might have wondered what that means. So let me explain that a little bit. So first of all, if you are a buyer's agent, so you're representing the buyer, and you're coming in and you are making an offer on, let's say, this top one here. So I'm trying to make an offer on this property. I can tell it's the correct property because I can see the listing agent right here. So I know that's correct. I see the purchase price and all. Now, if I were to click on this option here, what it would do is it would connect my loop as the buyer's agent with the listing agent's loop in a totally confidential way. But what it would do is it would pull over some of the property information that is public information, so like the property address or maybe the lot description and so forth. It would pull that property information into your loop to help start autofilling it. So that's nice, okay? It helps add some information so you don't have to type it in. But another really big thing it does, if you've been using Dotloop for a while now and you've had a listing and you get an offer in on that listing, in Dotloop, you might notice that you get a second loop created from that other agent who's submitting the offer to you. And that's really annoying to have two loops in there for the same property. Okay, one is yours and one is the agent submitting the offer. If you select one of these options from the dropdown, when it links your loops, it'll make it so that when the agent makes an offer on your listing, it puts that offer in your loop in a separate folder and avoids the whole two loop situation. Now I know that's a little bit more advanced, and if you haven't been using Dotloop for too long, you might have not experienced a two loop situation, so no worries. I do have a tip video on that concept as well. So again, after class, feel free to email me at support@scottleroymarketing.com. Attention Leah, and I'd be happy to send you that video on this concept directly. So I know that was a little long spiel there, but it is a really awesome feature if you can learn how to use that correctly. So for right now, let's go ahead and put in a property address here for a practice loop. And just a heads up, you might be prompted to select a template from under here. These loop templates are created by your office staff. So they're really great. They will add folders and all the initial forms that you need to get started on your transaction. All right, your templates, if you have any, will look different than mine because mine is from the Ballantyne Area Market Center. All right, but again, your office staff adds these in, so really great to play with them if you have that option. But just so we're on the same page, I'm going to leave that unclicked and go ahead and click Create Loop. So that's a red button on the bottom right here. I'm going to click Create Loop to go into my loop right away. Now just a quick basic short little tutorial here of your actual loop. Right, there are three main sections within your loop, as you probably know as you've been working in Dotloop. The top section here, the document section, is the place you'll be spending most of your time in. Right, you'll notice that here it says anything you add is private until shared. That's the biggest concept of Dotloop. Okay, even if you have people in your loop, they can't see the things in your loop until you share it with them. Scrolling on down, we do have this people section on the very bottom. Right, is where you'll add your clients, maybe your mortgage provider. You'll always see yourself here and the admin in your office. And it's actually really important that you do see the admin in your office in this people section here, as they need to do compliance on your loop. If anyone does not see the admin in your loop, okay, in this people section here, it should say admin for maybe your office, something to that extent. If you could email support@scottleroymarketing.com and let them know that you are not connected to your market center in Dotloop, they'll be able to fix that up for you right away so that you can participate in class. But it's really important you're connected to your market center so you have access to all your market center forms. Right? So really important we see our admin here. Another really important thing on this bottom here. So where it says your name, please take note of what your Dotloop email address is. It is extremely important that if an agent is sharing a form to you in Dotloop, that they share it to this email address specifically. Super, super important. Agents get multiple Dotloop accounts created all the time because they're not sure of their Dotloop email address. So please make sure to make note of that. And last but not least, we do have a task section on the very bottom here, which is really awesome if you're like me and like to create to-do lists. You can create to-do list templates in here of all the things you need to do to get your listing live, for example, and you can bring that into every listing loop, such as get photos taken, get it professionally measured, put a lockbox out, put a sign out, all the 900 things that you need to do to get a listing ready to go live. Right? So you can create to-do lists for yourself right in here. All right, and if your office uses this task section as well for compliance, you might see on the bottom here any forms that you need to add to get your paycheck. We like that. All right, but where we are going to start is on this people section right here, and this is the first place you'll need to go in your loop to add your clients to your loop. So as you might have guessed, we're going to go ahead and click Add Person, that big red button on the far right of the people section here. So I clicked Add Person. Now let's go ahead and add our client to the loop. So there are three main things that you need to add about your client, and that is their full name, their email address, and their role. So if you want to go ahead and put like a first and last name like John Smith, if you're not feeling particularly creative today, or your favorite TV star, okay, whoever you want your client to be in today's practice loop. And for the email address, I always suggest using a personal email address that you have that is not connected to your Dotloop account. So that way when you share a form to that, you can see what it looks like when a client receives the form from you in Dotloop. So that if they ask any questions to you, you know how to best direct them. And the role here. So in the role on the far right, we always need to select the role, and the role is super important. They will not be able to electronically sign without a role. So I cannot express how important it is to select a role on the bottom right here. So I'm going to select seller because we're going to be working on a listing loop in today's class. So if you want to follow along, feel free to click seller as well. Now, this is something I talk about in the Dotloop 101 class, but it's such an important point that I need to discuss it. This add to my team feature here. So let's talk about that real quick. Please, if you are taking notes in today's class, I will point out noteworthy moments. Right? This is one of those. Please write down to never ever click add to my team if you are adding a client to the loop. What this button does is it would allow that client to see everything in your loop that you can see. And you, of course, don't want that, right? You only want your client to see the items in your loop that you choose to share with them. All right, so again, never click this button if we are adding our client to the loop, and it can't be undone, so really important. When we do want to use it, because it is a really cool feature. So let's talk about when we would want to click this checkbox here. If you are collaborating or working on the same side of a transaction as another agent in your office, so let's say you're partnering up and you're co-listing a property together with another agent in your office. If you add that other agent to your loop and click add to my team, it would add this loop in that other agent's Dotloop account as well, so they can do everything in that loop that you can do, so you can collaborate together. Another great time to use this button here, this checkbox, is if you are on a real estate team and you have a team admin, you can add your team admin to every loop and click add to my team, and it will put this loop in your admin's Dotloop account so they can help you with the transaction. So great feature, just make sure not to use it when you're adding your client to the loop. All right, and let's go ahead and click add person on the bottom right here. All right, I can now see that my client, Tony Stark, for any Iron Man fans, has been added to the loop as a seller. Now you will need to always give yourself a role as well. So if you could come in line with your own name. And let's go ahead and change none on the far right to listing agent. Just a quick tip down here. Now, of course, if the client had a spouse or you were adding your mortgage provider, you would just click add person again to continue adding people to the loop. Now, just a heads up, the people, excuse me, let's say you added your mortgage provider to the loop. The mortgage provider and your client would not be able to see each other in the loop unless you introduce them. So let's say you want to allow your mortgage provider and your client to start working together in this loop and interacting. You can absolutely do that by going to the 3 drop-down dots to the far right of that client's name and clicking introduce. All right, so by selecting introduce, that would allow that client to start working with your mortgage provider, for example. All right, and of course, in this example, you would have to add person and add your mortgage provider to the loop first, and then you would be able to introduce them. Also, if you notice that you misspelled the client's name or email address, there is an edit option as well. And I accessed all of this by just clicking the 3 drop-down dots to the far right of this client's name. Anytime you see those 3 drop-down dots, that signifies more options. So it's a great place to click if you're looking for something to do. Okay, so now that we have our people successfully added to the loop, let's go ahead and scroll up to the top of the page to the Documents section. So I am on the document section on the top of your page. And let's talk about organization in your loop before we start adding our forms. Now, as you know, there are a whole bunch of different forms that go into a single transaction. And it's pretty overwhelming to have all of those forms within one folder in your loop. It makes it really hard for you to find forms quickly, and also it makes it hard for your office staff to do compliance on your loop if they're all under one folder. If you start using folders to organize your loop, it'll make your life way easier, and you'll get some brownie points from your office staff as well. Now feel free to check in with your office staff to see if they have the best policy they would prefer that you use. I'm going to show you how I have found to best use folders to organize my loop. So first of all, you should at least see one folder in your loop, and it's just named folder. On the far right, let's go ahead and click on those three drop-down dots to the far right of the folder name, and let's click rename. So again, three drop-down dots are our friend and mean more options, and I'm going to select rename from that drop-down. And you'll notice a ticker starts appearing to the left of the word folder. So I'm going to change this folder name to listing folder. So I can just start typing in the word listing in this case. And then to make that folder name stick, I can either click enter on my keyboard, or I can click in the white margin to the left here to get that to stick right away. If you accidentally named it something funky, no worries, you can always come back to those three drop-down dots and rename that again. That's no big deal. So now let's talk about adding two more folders. Okay, we have our listing folder. So let's come up to the top, and just a heads up, things you would put in your listing folder would be everything involved in listing the property. Maybe your listing agreement, maybe the residential property disclosures signed by the seller, you're working with real estate agents, okay, anything involved in the listing of the property, measurements of the home, and so forth. And now I'm going to click add folder on the top right here. Okay, and you'll always see add folder as long as you don't have anything checked. So if you're not seeing add folder, make sure we don't have any checkboxes checked. And let's go ahead and click add folder, and you'll see a new folder appear. So now this ticker is ticking on the left side of new, so I'm going to use the arrows on my keyboard to move to the right side of the word new, so I can erase that and write in the word sales. Okay, so sales folder. So this will be, you would put everything in this folder that has to do with the contract of the property. So your fully executed contract, fully executed property disclosures, everything that goes into the contract. And again, I can either click enter on my keyboard or click in the white margin to make that new folder name stick. We're just going to do this one more time so that A, you're a pro at adding folders, and B, it's really great to have an example of organization in your Dotloop account so you can reference it back. So bear with me, I know this isn't super exciting, but if you'll click on add folder one more time, we have our new folder display where I can use my arrows on my keyboard to toggle to the right of the word new and backspace and name this one closing, our favorite folder, right? So this is where all the documents that go into the closing. So the closing disclosure, maybe the termite letter, you name it. And then again, I can click enter or click in the margin to make that stick. And I now have my three main folders. Of course, you can use folders to whatever capacity you would like to use them and however makes the most sense to you. Another great usage of it, if you are listing a property, great, you get an executed offer, but the offer falls through. Okay, so what you would need to do at that time, you could rename that folder name, terminated offer, and you could then add a new folder for that new offer that comes in. Okay, so you can put in a new executed offer and maybe the buyer's name coming in. So folders are really great for that case as well. Let me know if you have any questions on using folders. I'm happy to answer that. Really great tool. So for now, let's go ahead and click on Add Document to the far right of the listing folder. Now what I'm going to focus on for a good portion here now is the three main ways to add documents into your loop. Now in Dotloop 101, we go in depth on this first option. We are going to go over it slightly as I'm going to show you a little more advanced tips in working with the templates. So we'll start here. So if you'll go ahead and click Add Document to the right of the listing folder if you haven't already, and you'll see these 3 blue boxes display. Let's go ahead and click on the first blue box that says Templates. It says Add an interactive form by selecting one from Templates. So what it means by an interactive form, it means a form that you can just start typing in. Okay, it has fields that you can type in right away. So again, that was that first blue box that I selected. And you'll see a pop-up up here. And on the left-hand side of that pop-up box, you'll see a bunch of red folders going down that box. Now there is a little gray scroll bar on the right side of that column specifically that you can use to scroll down. Now just a heads up, your template folders and templates will look different than mine. These are added by your office staff because they're awesome, but it's different depending on what market center you're with and what state you're in. So don't be alarmed that yours looks different than mine. It's supposed to. So I'm going to bring in a listing agreement. If you would like to follow along, feel free to use the scroll bar on the left-hand column to scroll and find the folder in red that you think would have a listing agreement in it. And go ahead and click on it. So again, I'm clicking on the form folder name on the left-hand side in red that I think would have a listing agreement in it. Once I select the folder, I'm going to then use this red search bar at the top of my screen to search for the form that I'm looking for. Okay, so I can click right to the right, the search icon here, and I'm going to type in the word listing. And that will pull up all the forms that have the word listing in that title of the form. Okay, so whatever your listing agreement is called in your area, I know it's a little different based on the state. It'd be nice if all forms were the same, make everyone's life easier, but that'd be too easy. So again, let's go ahead and type in the word listing on that top search bar or whatever your listing agreement is called. And it should pull up your listing agreement in theory. Now you'll notice that the form names do run off the page here a lot of times. If you're not sure if it's the right form, if you simply hover your mouse over that form name, it will pop up and tell you the full name. So you'll see that little black speech bubble I have here. It tells me the full form name. So I know that's the right one, so I can go ahead and click the checkbox to the left of that form name. And of course I can select multiple at once as well. So you'll notice this number starts increasing next to your folder name depending on how many you select. So once I select the form I want, I'll go ahead and click copy. I'm sorry, that was a little fast. It says copy on the very bottom right in a red button. So go ahead and click copy. And that will pull the form into your loop here. And I'll give you this nice checkbox letting you know it was imported, and you can just click OK. And here we are, we have that listing agreement in our loop. Right, so to start working on that form, let's simply go ahead and click on that form name to pull that open. So again, simply click on the form name that you just brought into your loop to pull that open right away. And you'll see this autofill box pop up right when you get into the form. Now this autofill box is our friend, so please make sure not to click this X on the top right here. And we like this autofill box, it makes our life way easier. So first of all here, the roles on the top, very, very important if you want your client to auto sign. You would have to see your client's name in line with seller 1 and potentially seller 2 if there's a second party in this transaction. So let's say you didn't know that your client had a spouse. You can always click select person to the far right of that client's name and click add person here. Now Dotloop already knows that our client is seller 1 because we told Dotloop that this client is our seller when we were adding that client in. If you do not see your client's name here, feel free to just click select person and add them from that list. Okay, one more time, they will not be able to electronically sign without this step, so really important. Property address here. So this is where you can start putting in information about your property. And if you put it in here, it will not only autofill on this form, but it will also autofill on all future forms that you bring into your loop. So it's really beneficial to enter it in one time here. So let's go ahead and just so you can see what it looks like when it autofills, let's just put in the address information here. So the street number, street name. All right, so any information you'd like to put in just so you can see what fields look like when they autofill. This is also a great tool if you are a new agent or you are new to working with the forms in your state. All right, a lot of these forms are 10 pages and a lot of legal verbiage and a little overwhelming, especially at the beginning when you're getting used to them. This is kind of like your cheat sheet that you have, this autofill box. It straight up prompts you for the information it needs, and then Dotloop knows where on the form to put each part of this information. Right? So this is a really great tool, and not only makes it quicker, but it also gets it all in the right spot so you're sure of that. And as we scroll down, you can glance at all the information that you can put in here in this box to autofill that in. But for now, let's just go ahead and scroll to the very bottom and click autofill. And I see now that 2 roles have been assigned and 13 fields have been autofilled. And this little black speech bubble on the right side here. Now, a couple things. So you'll notice that anything that is yellow, all these yellow fields, that indicates to me that those fields have been autofilled. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Now, I do go into depth in the Dotloop 101 video on how to work on this form and share it out. So if you would like to see more on that, feel free to check out the Dotloop 101 video on slmtraining.com. What I'm going to show you in this more advanced class is just some additional tips. Okay, so first of all, what I'd like to show you on the top black toolbar, I do just want you to be aware of that you can add initials, extra initial boxes, for example, or signature boxes on this form. So if you are working with, let's say, a third client, but there are only 2 places for the client to initial on this form, you can come up to add and add a third initial box. And we'll be going more in depth on that in just a little bit here. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. But what I'd really like to highlight, if you could hover over more on the top black toolbar, let's talk about host in-person signing. This is a really cool feature. So what host in-person signing does, right, let me give you a little example here. Let's say you are at your client's house and you are filling out the listing agreement next to them. While you talk about the property, you're filling out the form. Well, wouldn't it be nice after you fill out the form to just be able to pass your computer or your device over to your client so that they can click to sign right next to you instead of having to email it to them? Yeah, it would. So this is what that does exactly. So in this more option on the top black toolbar, you can click host in-person signing. And I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I don't really recommend clicking on it on your end, and I'll tell you why in just a moment here. So just watch on this part. So when I go to more and host in-person signing, it then will ask me who I would like to sign. So if I had multiple clients in this loop, it would have their names on this list. And I can click who I'd like to sign the form first. So I would select and then click continue. It will then say, okay, great, pass the device over to your client. You would do so and they would be able to sign right next to you. Now the biggest thing I want you guys to know about this from an agent standpoint is once your client signs that form and gives your computer back to you, you will be logged into your client's account. So your client gets a free Dotloop account with having a transaction with you. So when they do host in-person signing, it signs you out of your Dotloop account and it signs your client into their free Dotloop account. So when you get the device back, just so you're not caught off guard, you will need to log back into your Dotloop account specifically if you want to continue working with that form. Okay, I just don't want you guys to not look like you know what you're doing. All right? And this is when having a practice loop and practicing these things really comes in handy before doing them in person. So really awesome tool though. You can do that on a tablet as well, so you can have them sign right next to you on your iPad or Android device, for example. So I definitely recommend trying that out. That's a really cool tool to use. But for now, let's go ahead and click on this back arrow. It's kind of hard to see. It's that red back arrow on the top left of that black toolbar. To go back to your loop. Back to your loop, rather. All right, it might ask you when you click back on that top left, it might ask you if you want to save it. Click yes. It'll probably ask if you want to share the form. Click no for right now. And again, I know that was just a quick tip on those templates. And for more in-depth information on filling out those templates and sharing it, the Dotloop 101 video is really great to watch, and that's slmtraining.com. But for time's sake, what we'll need to do now is let's come in line with the sales folder here. If you're following along, I'm going to click Add Document. Now, what we just went over is that first blue box, so this templates, and those are all preloaded templates in your Dotloop account that you can just start typing in. Now let's talk about this browse option, that middle blue box. So it says search and add any PDF from your computer into this folder. Now let me tell you about a scenario you would use this option. So let's say that you are not a big fan of technology, or maybe your clients don't trust electronic signatures. You'll run into that, all right? So your client is not digging this whole electronic signature deal. So you'll have to go and bring the form to them to hand sign, okay? So what you would do, let's say you even went through and you typed up the entire form on Dotloop so it looks professional, it's all typed up. You can then come to the far right, these three dots on the far right, and you can print this out straight from here. Okay, so let's say we've done that. We're printing out our form. We have the form in our hand. We go to our appointment. Your client signs that form. And we come back to the office, and we are now looking at this signed document in our hands that we need to get into our loop. This is where this comes into play. So what you would do in that case, if you have the signed document in your hand, step one is you would scan it to your computer. Okay, maybe through your home scanner, or your office probably has a scanner. Scan it to your computer. So it is now saved on your computer, and I would then click this browse option. I'm going to click the center browse option to browse my computer. Okay, this is all the forms on my computer, anything I have saved. And I do highly suggest saving all forms, especially all executed forms, to your computer in a backup folder as well, right? Just in case Dotloop ever blows up, which obviously is very unlikely, but it's really great to have a backup of all of your forms. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and you'll probably have to watch on my screen here to do this part, unless you have a PDF on your computer that you would like to follow along with. I'm going to just double click on a PDF to bring that into my loop so you can see how to utilize this feature. Now, Dotloop does require it to be a PDF specifically to bring that into your loop. It will not allow any JPEG or PNG files. If you're not familiar with that file extension, those are just picture files simply. So if you do have a picture, agents run into that. I see a lot when they're taking a picture of their earnest money check, for example. They have a picture of it. You won't be able to pull that into your loop as a picture file. If you run into that, if you simply Google JPEG to PDF converter, it'll pull up a whole bunch of free converters, and we typically use the top one. So again, that was JPEG to PDF converter. If that's a little over your head, feel free to just email us at support@scottleroymarketing.com and ask us for that converter, or we can even convert it for you, and then you'll be able to put it into your loop as a PDF. So just a quick tip. Again, that was a little more advanced, so I don't mean to throw you for a loop. But for now, if you do have a PDF in your loop, feel free to go ahead and click on it, or you can just watch on my screen to see how you would edit a PDF. Now, when clicking on it, I know this is a PDF because I can't just click to start typing anywhere. Okay, that is pretty much the definition of a PDF. It is a non-editable version of the form. PDFs are great because it preserves all the signatures on the forms. Those signatures can't get erased. So let's talk about when we would want to utilize this PDF editor. Now, let's say you have a fully executed document in your loop, and you need to make a slight change. Let's say the settlement date is changing by a week. All right, so just a heads up, as you probably know, or if you do not know, let me tell you this real quick. If you have a fully executed interactive document in your Dotloop account, so one of those documents you can just start typing in that we looked at in the last example. If it is fully executed, meaning signed by all parties, if you try to make any changes to that form, it will erase all signatures on that form because it thinks they didn't sign for that. So that makes complete sense, but also alarming. Okay, this is why I also encourage saving any executed documents to your computer, to a folder, right, just to preserve that. So what you can do in that case is you can convert it to a PDF and make slight changes to the form and have your client sign for those changes. So I'm going to show you how to do exactly that so it'll make more sense to you in just a moment here. Before we do that, however, I just want to point out on the top here in this file option, it does give you some useful tools here, such as splitting the document or rotating it. So if you scan the document in sideways, instead of hurting your neck and looking at it sideways, you can rotate that by page or the entire file here. And you can also split the document. So if you scanned in your entire listing packet, for example, and you want to split that into individual forms, you can split the PDFs as well. So cool tools that you can use right here. All right, so now let's go back to our example of we have this fully executed document. So just pretend these are fully signed here. And I'm going to show you how you can make changes to, let's say, the settlement date. Okay, so it's just an example. We're going to make a slight change and have our client sign for that change. So what I'm going to do is come up to this Add option on the top black toolbar and add Strike Through from that dropdown. I'm going to strike through the incorrect information first. Okay, but feel free while we're here to take a look at all the different things that you can add here. So I'll add Strike Through. And when I click on Add Strike Through, it'll start following my mouse. Okay, unless you're on a tablet or a touchscreen computer, just a heads up, it doesn't follow your mouse. So, but usually it'll follow your mouse here, and I can simply click to drop that strike through wherever I want it. Now what I need to do is I need to add the correct settlement date. So I'm going to come up to this Add field, and I could do two things here. I could add text, okay, so I could type in the date, or I can actually add a date field. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in this example. I'll add date, but obviously the text field is a very important or very useful thing to add as well. Moving forward, so it'll start following my mouse, so I can then line that up on the line here and click to drop that. Now, since it's a date field, it awesomely gives us this little calendar that I can scroll to then select the new date. Okay, you'll see these little arrows at the top here that you can scroll by to the next month, and then you can simply click to select the date you want. Now, as you all know, as the awesome agents that you guys are, you will then have to add initial boxes for your clients to sign for that change. So we would come back up to Add on the top black toolbar and click Add Initials. And it'll start following your mouse. Just a heads up, if you have been using Dotloop for a while, you might have noticed that when you drop one initial field, it then goes away and you have to come back up to Add. If you want to add multiple at once, you would just click Shift on your keyboard and then click to drop it. And then it stays following my mouse, so I can click to drop the next one. So again, if you were trying to add more than one initial box, for example, if you hold Shift and then click, it'll still follow your mouse, so you can add a second one. Okay, just a cool little shortcut. You'll notice little shortcuts over here as well. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. We cut out a little time there. So there is one more big step that you guys need to make sure you're doing if you ever add any initial boxes. And this is another one of those noteworthy items if you plan on editing PDFs ever or adding initial boxes like this. You always have to assign the field. Okay, so they will not be able to sign this field. You have to click on it and click Assign Field. Now when I click Assign Field, you'll notice this little drop down appears that I can then click my client's name from that list. And it will then put in my client's initials and print, indicating to me that I set it up correctly. Now, if I printed out this form, this would be a blank box, okay? And you've probably seen what it looks like when a form is actually signed, right? It's in cursive with a time and date stamp. So this seeing your client's initials in print here just indicates to you that you set it up correctly. They will be able to electronically sign. And of course, you could do the same thing to the second initial box if there was a spouse in the transaction. Right, so then you could share this form and save and share on the top right. It would send to your clients and they could sign for that change. Now let's say when you were adding initial boxes here that we accidentally added one in the middle of the box, or like in this example I have a second one here and I don't really need that because I only have one client. So if you ever need to delete a field, all you'll need to do is click on that field. Okay, so I clicked on it. Once I click on that field, I would simply click this little X on the black toolbar, which only appears once I click on the field, to get rid of that right away. Okay, so that is a really great tool to use. Usually PDF editors are pretty expensive, and you get one for with Dotloop included. All right, so it's a really great tool, especially another great time you'll want to use this. One more scenario to help wrap your mind around using this is, let's say you have an agent on the other side of the transaction that doesn't use Dotloop. They send you an offer signed by their clients. So now you have in your email a PDF of the offer that is signed by their clients. So now, luckily, during this whole transaction, your clients decided to pick up and go to Florida on vacation. So you'll need to send that PDF over to them via email so they can electronically sign. If that does happen, you would have to go through and add initial boxes to each one of these fields if it's a PDF, assign it to them, and share that to your client who went on vacation in Florida in the middle of their transaction. Okay, so just another example of when this is a really great tool to use. You will run into needing this. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions on it, please let me know. Feel free to email us at support@scottloraymarketing.com. Put attention Leah if you have any questions as well. I'm happy to answer those for you. So for now, let's go ahead and click on back on the very top left of that toolbar. Okay, so same place, if you're following along, I'm clicking on the back arrow on the top right of this PDF. It's asking if I want to save it. I'll go ahead and click yes. If it asks if you want to share it, you can click no. Now there is just one more big way that you can add documents to your loop here, and this is my favorite one. I get pretty excited on this one. So what you'll do now, if you want to follow, you might just really need to follow or watch on my screen on this one. So if you could just watch here and not follow along on this one, I'm going to click Add Document to the far right of whatever folder I'd like to add the form to. We have now gone over the first two blue boxes. And just a heads up for any of you that like to drag and drop files here, you can do that as well. So from your folder on your computer, you could just drag and drop a PDF in as well, and that's doable. But let's take a look at this email option on the far right here. So it says attach the files you need to an email and send them directly into this folder. This is pretty cool. So to show you guys this, I do have an email account open. It is a Gmail account, so it should look pretty similar to your email account if you do use the kw.com Gmail account. And first of all, let's talk about when we would use this. So let's say we have an agent who is not with KW and does not use Dotloop. So they emailed over an offer to purchase in an email. Okay, so here's the PDF that I need to add to my loop. All right, so this is the quickest way to get this PDF from your email account directly into your loop. So let me start that process for you. So step one, all right, we clicked on Add Document to the far right of the folder we want to add that to, and we'll go ahead and select that email option. Okay, so that third box over, we'll select email. It will then generate this crazy long Dotloop email address that is specific to this folder in this loop. Okay, so I'm going to click Copy to Clipboard, and it will give you this green button that says Email Copied to Clipboard. Okay, so we copied that. So step two, I'm now going to go back into my emails. I'm switching tabs at the top here. So on the top, so I'm on this form, I'm on this email that the other agent sent me with that offer to purchase attached as a PDF here. And I can come down to click forward. Right? If you are utilizing a Gmail account for your business, this is how you would forward an email, as I'm sure you figured out. Okay, if you're using another system like GoDaddy or Hotmail, whatever other system you might be using, you would just need to forward that forward that email. And in the to field, I'm going to right click and paste that in. Okay, and I'll paste in that crazy long Dotloop email address that again is specific to that folder in that loop. You will notice there's a bunch of verbiage in the email, but the loop will ignore all the verbiage in the email and it will only send in the attachment of the PDF. So again, this only works for PDFs. No picture files on this, unfortunately. And I can click send on the bottom here. So I'm forwarding that attached PDF to that crazy long email address we got and sending it. So now, step 3, I'm going back to my Dotloop. Okay, I'm going back to my loop here. And just a heads up, the file does not just magically appear in your loop. You will need to refresh your page to see that that came in. It typically takes around 15 to 30 seconds for that file to be emailed into your loop. It typically doesn't take too long. So if you're not familiar with how to refresh your page, you would just click on this arrow on the, typically it's by the back arrow on your browser. I'm in Google Chrome, so this is where it is in Google Chrome. It's an arrow and a circle to refresh your page. Once I refresh, there it is, that emailed form that was in my emails. I just forward it right on over to this folder here. And so that is the most efficient way to get that form from your email directly into your loop. So it's a really awesome tip, make your life a little easier there. If that was a little overwhelming, I know that was a few steps there, I truly do. It takes a little bit of practice. I did create a short video on the ways to email into Dotloop directly. It's about a 10-minute video. If you would like that, again, feel free to email support@scottloraymarketing.com. Put attention to my name, Leah, and I will send that over to you right away. Okay? And that will show you that one more time. All right, before we wrap up class, this is the very last thing that I will be going over. A big question that we get from agents is, I shared a form to my client and they said they did not receive it. That can be very frustrating, so I want to show you, I believe there's 3 main things that you'll want to do to make sure they're receiving and what you can do about that. Okay? Step 1, the biggest thing is, of course, scrolling down and double checking on the people section here. Check on your client's email address. Really, a whole bunch of the time, that's what's the matter. The email address is entered in incorrectly. If you do see that, no worries. You can click the 3 drop-down dots on the far right and click Edit here to change the email address. Now, of course, you can encourage your client as well to check the spam folder. That's a great thing to do. Make sure they're checking their spam folder. Okay, the second thing that you can do is you can reshare the form with them. So first of all, bear with me real quick. I'm going to share a form in general just so you can see what it looks like to reshare it. Okay. So now I need to reshare it. So I shared this one with my clients in the past and they say they did not receive it. So what I can do now is I would click on this checkbox to the far left of the form name that I want to reshare. Once I click that checkbox, it will give me these bulk options at the top here, including the option to share. So I'm going to go ahead and click that red share button on the top right here. And this only appears, by the way, when you click something, when you click a checkbox. So if you're not seeing that, make sure you click a checkbox and then let's click share. And by the way, I do go in depth on the share screen and the different ways to share it to your clients at the end of that Dotloop 101 video. So check that out if you're curious on that. And again, that's on slmtraining.com. But for this example, so I see right here who has access. So I see right here my client's name should have access to that form already. This is telling me that, yes, I didn't just make up in my head that I sent it over. I actually did. And they should have that in your inbox, but they're saying they don't see that. If that's the case, I would come over to this reshare and more options. So in line with who has access, reshare and more options here. I could then come and click on my client's name, and I would select reshare. Okay, so that's a really great thing to do. And the third thing that you would want to check on, so if you were following along on that, sorry, you can go ahead and click on that X on the top right to get out of that. So the third and final recommendation I would have to checking on if they're saying they're not receiving the form, if you come to the very top right of your loop, you'll see it says activity log right here. If you select activity log, it'll show you every single click that was made in your loop. But why it's important for this one, you'll notice at the top here, it shows me that I shared this form with my client, the email address it was shared to, and the important part, the status. So it shows the status is sent. So that is good. Sometimes if the email address is not working, if it bounces back, it'll show you the status has failed, okay, or it didn't go through, whatever it might say. Check on the status, make sure it says sent to verify you're having the correct email address there. And that is the third and final thing to do if your client is not receiving the form you're sending to them. Okay, so that was the advanced Dotloop class, Dotloop 201. I hope you guys gained at least a few extra tips and tricks to help make your life a little easier as you're going through these transactions. Of course, feel free to watch the Dotloop 101 video, or this class will be recorded and up on slmtraining.com in just a few hours here, so you can watch this again later, so you can pause it and follow along. I know that's how I learn best as well. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me at support@scottleroymarketing.com. You can put attention Leah. I'm happy to write out any notes for you or send you any tip videos that are concentrated on that topic specifically. All right, guys, happy looping, and I hope you have a happy Friday Eve. Let us know how we can help you best. Take care.